everybody, welcome to Let's Die Comedy Survival Comedy Evolved. I don't know what this is anymore. What are we doing? So this is what happened. So I was visiting Taylor. We maintained 6 feet the whole time, and she convinced me of a fun quarantine activity that we could do together while I was visiting. And that activity was cage diving with sharks. And of course, the metal wire that held the cage aloft snapped and sent me plummeting to the bottom of the ocean floor. And I know what you're thinking. You might think that this sounds an awful lot like the plot to 47 Meters Down. And you'd be right. Except this one, I was underwater, which is the name of a movie that we're going to talk about today. And while I was down there, I did avoid the sharks, but my sister was eaten and she's gone. So, what's this show? This show is a comedy show about things and how to survive them. Impossible things. Sometimes. How to survive them. Sometimes. And sometimes we play games. And this show is the thing. Man, you know what? I'm just reaching. I'm just looking for a ledge. I'm just drowning in my own words. My name's Bret. And with me today is favorite Hungry. Hi, Hungry.
Hi, Hungry.
It's nice to hear your voice again, Hungry.
I'm Taylor.
Hi, Taylor. Now,
I'm not hungry. I am hungry. Darn it.
Why don't you get you some nom-noms there?
We'll see. Anyway,
what have you been up to? Anything new?
No. Just chilling.
Chilling, committing villainry. That rhymes. It checks out. Don't do the math on it, folks. Oh boy, Taylor, we watched a movie.
We did?
We did. And the reason why I wanted you on specifically for this one is because formerly you were a water scientist, isn't that right?
That is indeed correct.
So the basis of the show when we first started it was I'm just some dumb hill person from the mountains of West Virginia with some street smarts and rough and tumble tactics versus the intelligence and wisdom of a legitimate scientist. And that's how the show originally started, and then it evolved into me just dragging the whole show down with just ridiculousness. So should we just continue being ridiculous and just do what we do?
Why not?
I don't know how to do anything else. So Taylor, you were a hydrologist, yes?
Yep.
Can you explain exactly what all it was that you were responsible when you held that role?
That's kind of complicated, but collected and analyzed data about water and its movement and its quality and how much of it there was, basically.
Did you ever get into a fist fight with an alligator?
No, but a crocodile did try to eat me once.
Really? Can you expound upon that memory?
Well, I was in the Everglades on a small boat with a coworker. Everglades part like in the mangrove swamps, like on the very edge of the southern edge of the Everglades.
This was in Florida, yes?
This was in Florida, yes. That's where the Everglades are.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sitting on the side of the boat doing something with a water quality sensor, and there was a bit of a feeding frenzy going on at the mouth of this little channel we were working at. But like, it is what it is. That happens when the tide changes. But yeah, apparently a crocodile thought, why stick with fish? Like, there's a nice human over there that looks pretty yummy. So it came at me with its mouth wide open. and I had my back turned to it. But luckily, my coworker happened to notice and started yelling. I turned around and saw a crocodile coming at me from like 5-10 feet away, and it was like, oh crap, and had to like move out the way. And then my coworker got a paddle and started hitting the water to try to scare it away. Fun times.
So,
almost became crocodile food.
how big was the crocodile?
Like over 12 feet long.
Holy God!
Crocodiles are pretty big.
Crocodiles are large, but that doesn't mean it could have been a juvenile, so I needed to ask.
That's true. And the ones in Florida aren't like as big as like Nile crocodiles or the ones you find in Australia.
Right. I was going to
anyways.
ask about that. I don't think I knew that crocodiles were in Florida. I thought they were all gators.
No, there's the Everglades are one place in the U.S. where you can find both in the same or very close environments.
That's
Alligators and crocodiles.
regardless, a toothy maul was coming at you.
Yes.
That's
indeed.
that can be very scary. What an interesting story. So you analyzed water for a living, and we watched a movie titled Underwater.
But it wasn't about the water.
Dun dun dun. But it took place underwater.
It did.
It did. It was a movie that came out in 2020, which is this year. It is directed by William Eubank and written by Brian Duffield and Adam Kozad. It stars Kristen Stewart, Vincent Castle, Jessica Henwick, John Gallagher Jr., and Mamadou Athie and TJ Miller. So it follows a group of scientists at the bottom of the ocean who encounter a group of creatures after an earthquake, a giant duck quacked, and the earth cracked. So it was released in January. I went and saw it with my dad and my sister, Charma Gagar. And you know what? We're covering it here. And look, Taylor, what I want to do is I took notes, okay? And I want you to give us your professional opinion on certain things, whether it's plausible, implausible, fact, fiction, whatever. I mean, it's all fiction, but you know what I mean. You follow?
I guess.
So, spoiler alert, we're going to spoil the fuck out of this movie.
The movie was almost as good as the year it came out in.
Ooh, hot take. I was getting ready to ask you what you thought of the movie overall. You know what? I'm not going to lie. I was hopeful going into it because I had been in a real lull. It's not often you get a good monster movie, straight horror monster movie where it's not some drama involving a person who turns out it's them the whole time because they're secretly insane or whatever, like an axe murderer with a mask. This is legit monster.
Like a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, my favorite horror movies are the ones that have legit monsters in them. I think back to Mimic and The Relic and things like that. So I was really hopeful for this. One thing I will say about this movie is that they do not spoil anything in the trailer, really. There's a fun twist towards the end that, if you read a lot of horror, you know about it, and it's really cool that they did that. I was severely impressed by that. Whether or not that saves the whole movie, I don't think so. I mean, the movie suffers from a lot of tropes, and there's some character, pretty much all the characters, we don't get a good feel for their motivations or why we should care about their, we don't really get a chance to empathize with them very much. So it's not a great movie, but it's a fun little popcorn flick that I feel like you could watch. Definitely not gonna crack my top 10 horror movie list, probably not even my top 20 or 30. But it's something that I would watch again, and I have watched again. I've watched it twice now. I'm a madman. I paid for a ticket, and then I paid for it again on Amazon. Yeah. I guess maybe I have low standards. I don't feel like they're low, but I recently took an IQ test, and it says I'm below average, so maybe that makes sense. Do you think this movie made me dumb?
I think that's probably what it was. If you had taken the IQ test before you ever watched this movie, it would have been a lot higher.
Maybe so. All right, so we're gonna start off. The facility in question, where all the work has been conducted, is a mining facility at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. So, Taylor, already, is there any sort of validity to underwater mining, especially at that depth?
I think it would take us going through a lot of other places first before we would resort to that.
Yeah, I feel like...
And I don't think it's very technologically possible at the moment.
Right, well,
it's possible, but it's not worth the money you would spend, like, versus the money you would make, like, at all.
That's what I was going to say. Like, humanity will find a way to do that if the thing at the bottom of the ocean that we want is worth the trouble.
Yeah, but right now it's not economically viable.
Yeah, like maybe if there were like 1,000 veins of platinum and gold down there, we'd probably figure out a way to get it up and running in 10 years. So it's the same thing with like asteroid mining or mining on the moon. Like for it to be worth the massive amount of money it would be to go to those places and mine, the thing that you're mining is going to have to make it all of it worth it, right? Taylor?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I thought we lost you for a second. So we see Kristen Stewart brushing her teeth. Is that plausible?
Brushing teeth? Yes. Brushing your teeth is plausible.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Though another part of that scene is much less plausible.
Okay, and this is if what you're about to say is what I'm about to ask next, is this spider at the bottom of the Mariana Trench inside of a scientific drilling facility?
Okay, like, there's like the smallest chance that the spider somehow got transported down there with other stuff, but how would it stay alive? Like, what bugs is it eating that deep under the water? Like, tell me what all the bugs that are flying around that it can eat to survive.
You would have to assume that a facility that deep and that remote would have very high standards of housekeeping to avoid.
Well, I don't know. That. Judging by the rest of the bathroom, it didn't look like they were that
Correct.
On point.
I will say this. I used to work in Alaska, and I worked in like the northernmost part of, like, you literally could not go any more north without crossing the ocean in Alaska. And you're so remote that to get anywhere else, especially in the summer, takes a very long time. Like if you get hurt, you're in a lot of trouble out there. And they took housekeeping very seriously because if one person got sick, the chances of them spreading it through the entire workforce is pretty great. If you got sick, they shipped you out almost immediately on like the next plane or the next helicopter or whatever it was. So I would imagine that place is so remote, the housekeeping would be insane. Like there would be like a cleaning staff that their only job is to literally clean to prevent people from spreading illnesses. And especially in the climate we're in now, like that would absolutely have to happen. There would be like a decontamination process and whatnot. Like chances are, I think the spider getting there isn't impossible because it just seemed like any other like drilling rig like you'd find at the surface is what it looked like the people were living in. You know what I mean? Like you had bunks,
yep,
and like a communal bathroom, and you just like grab your duffel bag and go to work. And that spider could have easily hitchhiked its way there, but to your point, like there has to be a breeding population of feeder insects to keep it alive. So maybe
seems very unlikely.
Maybe it was a shift change and someone brought it and it might not have eaten. Spiders can go a long time without eating, so maybe it was just still alive from that.
But some spiders, but
so Kristen Stewart does do something that deserves note. Like the spider, like it comes down on its little webby web and it lands in her sink and it can't get out. And rather than smash it or wash it down, she takes a paper towel and and helps it out and puts it on the floor so it can run away. And I thought that was great.
So it can slowly starve to death.
I mean, I get if you wanted to show mercy and smash it. Like, I mean, I guess there's that, but I wouldn't do it. If you gave me the option of starving slowly to death or being smashed instantly, I would probably pick being starving to death and dying peacefully. I'm assuming you would rather be smashed?
Yeah, I think instant death would be a better way to go.
Maybe. I don't know. It's not going to matter because she exits the bathroom. She's starting to put her shoes on and she exits the bath. She hears a noise.
Oh, I do like her jacket. Like, her jacket was cool. They did good on that.
Oh, okay.
It was a nifty looking jacket. That's what I took from that scene. It was like, the spider thing is stupid, but she has a nifty jacket. So
it's too bad.
Trade off.
It's too bad she doesn't, wear it for very long. She goes to put on her shoes, and she hears a strange noise. So she goes to go and she walks out of the bathroom to investigate. And instantly I'm thinking, you probably should have finished putting your shoes on first. Because what happens is some water drips from above her. And that's something I wanted to ask you about, because some water starts dripping from the ceiling directly above her. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, I have to think that if the whole integrity of the facility is such that there's a crack causing water to leak through the ceiling, you're not going to get that scene where it's just drip, drip, drip at first. You would get instant boom implosion of the facility from all the pressure. Would that be the way it works?
I mean, I don't know for sure. I'd have to think about it. And I have not, because
maybe
I don't think that hard about it.
Yeah, maybe if it was like concrete, I don't know.
They showed a lot of concrete wreckage in the following scenes after what you're talking about. While they're doing all their crawling, they do show quite a lot of concrete and rebar, which
I could see
question anyways.
Oh, they definitely built it on the surface and then lowered it down in incremental stages, if we want to get into that. But I don't know. The pressure of the Mariana Trench, I think, like, would cause just instant, like, as soon as that structure failed, its integrity was compromised. I think it would just be crunchy like a tin can, like, instantly. But it also could have been just like a water pipe, like, that was run into the bathroom, that because of the soon-to-be stresses of the external forces of the water pressure have made that water pipe crack and start leaking. So it could have been a freshwater pipe or a potable water pipe. Then we're treated to a massive explosion just down the hall from her, and water just starts just rushing in like crazy, and she's running, and she's occasionally like screaming at people's rooms to run out, and then this other dude shows up, and they manage to get to I don't know, like a junction point where they can seal it off. And of course there's two people running, and they're not going to make it, and she hits the button, and the whole section of that facility is crunched like a little tinny can. And what struck me there is, like, she was trying to get the door to shut, and she's like, I need a code. And I'm like, really? You need a code? Like, there's just not, like, software built into that place that as soon as it senses that catastrophe is happening, it just immediately seals all the bulkheads?
That's a good point. You'd think it'd be smart enough to do that.
You'd think that would be one of the first safety precautions that they would make. Like, you need a security code to shut this door. Okay, that's fine during normal operations. You don't want people just shutting giant-ass bulkheads for no reason and stopping progress, but there needs to be a system in place that when the water is, like, rushing in, you need to something automatically should shut the doors. So I thought that was weird. It also said at the beginning, like, as the camera was panning down through the water to the facility, it says it's staffed by 316 people. Did you see that part?
No, so that was another thing, is that beginning part, they flashed all that info, like, so fast, like, you couldn't process it before the next thing, like, before it went away and the next thing popped up. So I saw, like, every other one of, like, the little, like, statistics it gave about it.
Yeah.
Or news headlines and stuff.
Yeah,
You guys need to slow that rate down. And
it
like I
was.
read fast, so
I know your IQ test said that you're a superior intellect. So I believe you.
I just guessed on all the questions.
Yeah, sure you did. Guessed correctly. The only way to guess correctly on every answer is to know which all the wrong answers are, Miles. That's a Spider-Man reference. So actually it was like as it was right after that point, as the camera's panning down and we see the name of the facility and directly underneath that in ghostly letters it says 316 people or something like that. I don't know why they felt the need to do that. Like they need to put a hard number on how many people it takes to run this place, and also why 300 and how did they get to 316? It seems very specific. Mostly because we only ever see a total of 8 people in the movie. I mean, are we to believe that 310 of them were killed immediately?
And the life pods. There weren't that many life pods. Like,
oh, we'll get there.
I think they showed 3 or 4 sections that each had like 10 pods.
We'll get
definitely
there.
Not for 316 people.
Right. That's a real case of the Titanic's there, but we'll get to that point in a bit. But the 316 people, I'm like thinking, okay, so naturally you want to have probably your drilling experts, your standard physical labor guys, your engineers, you're going to have your planners, you're going to have safety personnel, you're going to have housekeeping, you're going to have your cooks, people to keep people fed, all those, it's an operation that big requires a large amount of manpower. And again, I equate that to my time in Alaska, which was a 24/7 operation, as most places like that are. And you could not step outside of your room at any given time without seeing somebody. Do you know what I mean? Even if it was shift change, when she stepped out and there was virtually nobody around, that would not be the case. Half the facility would be asleep, waiting for their 12-hour shift, and the other half would be busy walking around doing their jobs. But maybe we'll touch on that a little bit as we get to more facilities in the movie. Or
we can talk about why all the facilities are underwater to begin with and not just on the surface like always.
You know what? They need to be in close proximity to the drill.
That's a whole nother thing. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Like, do they need to be in such close proximity to the drill? They should have just made one elevator that goes straight down to the drilling site, and then, I mean, that's it. The belt line or whatever you want to use to process the raw materials to the surface to, sort it all out would be totally automated. And any repairs to it would most likely be able to do by drones. So yeah, I get if you need like a couple people down there to run stuff, but you would think most of that operation could have been done outfitted to be done remotely.
You would think.
Like
depths that they drill in the Gulf of Mexico, granted water and like actual land is totally different things physics wise, but like they've drilled about as deep as what the Mariana Trench is. So wow. I don't know. And that's current technology, which obviously this is taking place at some point in the future.
So yeah, and this movie is in the future, but I don't remember if they put a year on it or not. We're going to meet some more characters here. So our 2 people, including Kristen Stewart, are then met by T.J. Miller. They find him in the rubble with his stuffed bunny because he needed a stuffed bunny. Must protect.
Of course.
And they get to what I can only assume is like a command outpost where I guess the foreman of the operation, and lucky enough, I guess it's the informant of the entire operation, is just chilling. He's got like a hurt arm or whatever. Yeah. Captain. I don't think Captain.
So it's like the bridge, but for the.
But here's the thing: it's a drilling operation.
I know it's weird. They called him Captain, and
it's not a military operation though. Like,
nope.
There's no reason for him to be captain unless that's like a nickname. Like, in my job, I get called boss all the time. I mean, I was those guys' bosses. Like, they still call me boss to this day, even though they don't work there anymore. And I'm like, I'm not your boss anymore. You don't have to call me that. And they're like, you're always going to be our boss. And I'm like, okay. So maybe he served in the military, was a captain, and they just continued to call him captain. I don't know. But we also get to meet Jessica Henwick in this part of the movie. Do we want to talk about her for a minute?
I mean, do we?
I know we do. I mean, come on. What did you tell me yesterday?
I don't remember.
She's the best part of Iron Fist. She's Colleen Wing in Iron Fist. She saves the whole series, and by the end of it, you're like, yeah,
absolutely correct.
And I will say that while I was watching this movie, it was distracting. Every time she was on screen, I was distracted by just how beautiful she is. Banana hammers.
Understandable.
Yeah. I mean, you said something similar. You said you wanted to F her in the B or something like that. Is that what you said?
Totally.
You said you wanted...
That sounds just like me.
You said you wanted to put a ring on it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no one would blame you.
Word for word, my exact thoughts.
Yo, I'm going to put F her in the B, then put a ring on it. Yep, that's what I remember.
Sounds exactly like me. You got the voice right and everything.
Put that in your Twitter bio.
I don't have a Twitter, but
okay. Should I tag her like in a post, and I'll just put it in quotes? I'll be like, I'll F her in the B and put a ring on it. Quote, Taylor.
I think that's probably not a great idea, but you do you, bro.
I probably end up blocked.
Immediately.
So the group is trying to discuss a plan to escape the facility that is crumbling around them, because the bulkheads, I guess the amount of damage to the facility is so great that the whole thing's coming down, which seems like a failure in planning and engineering in its own self, because you would think there would be, like earlier we talked about the bulkhead.
Fail-safes on fail-safes.
Exactly. So this breach should have been contained by now, and naturally you would evacuate the facility as a standard protocol for safety, even though the rest of it might be sound. But apparently all ways to go up are destroyed, like they're inoperable, they're not working. The only thing that works is one elevator that goes down. Great job. And they decide that the only way to get out is to go straight down, put on some diving suits, and then walk, what was it, like a mile, or was it like 2 clicks or something ridiculous?
That was another thing that bothered me, is they kept switching between the metric system and the imperial system. So they kept going miles, kilometers, meters, and I was like, this is so confusing. Can you just stick with one? And since it seems to be a multicultural crew and most of the world uses the metric system, why don't we stick with the metric system as opposed to keep switching?
Well, it seems like at least Jessica Henwick was, English.
And the captain was clearly neither American nor British.
Really?
I mean, he had quite an accent. No,
did he? I don't remember.
Yeah, he had an accent.
Was he like, crikey, the thermal coils are going to melt down unless we go straight down to the bottom of the trench and walk across 1.5 meter clicks miles away to the epicenter of the disaster?
Nope, that wasn't it. You want to try again?
Okay.
We have to go straight down, and we walk in our suits about a 1.5 meter click miles away to the epicenter of the disaster.
No, that's not quite right either. Getting closer, though.
Okay, well, moving on. So they all pile up into this room with all the diving suits, and foreshadowing, they mention that even the tiniest malfunction will cause you to implode. So, of course, there's a little scene where the first guy that Kristen Stewart meets, when the disaster first happens, and he gives her a different helmet, because I think he knows and he's hoping for the best, but it still happens. He implodes as soon as he goes down, and he's dead. It's pretty gruesome. But so we saw him. It did the classic thing, the trope where the black guy dies first. They didn't need to do that. I wish they hadn't have done that. It could have been anybody else, but it was him. So what you gonna do? Sad.
I really liked his voice. I was sad I didn't get to listen to him talk longer.
Yeah,
nice
like
voice.
if you wanted the suit to implode on somebody, I mean, there was like a random white dude that literally served no purpose throughout the entire movie, like the rest of the movie. And
Which one?
The one that survived, like we'll get there.
He had to be the love interest, okay?
It makes, but we don't care. We never saw that. Like, it's just like, oh, he's your boyfriend. Okay.
We magically care now.
And, well, okay, we're going to zip ahead here. He gets knocked the fuck out, and he spends the rest of the movie unconscious. They literally... Okay, we'll get there. Spooky ghost whale sounds, you know, they have to stop because there's, like, another elevator, I guess, and they think there's somebody in there for some reason.
It was a pod. No, it was a malfunctioning pod.
Yeah, and they needed to check for... I still feel like there's something to be said here, like, communication just isn't there. Like, there should be some manner of signaling whether or not somebody's alive from inside or not, you know, without having to leave again.
But also, how would they not have been crushed if it was, like, a pod with structural integrity? And how would they have gotten them out? Even, like, that's what I didn't understand. It's like, okay, even if the pod is, like, perfectly fine, they've got oxygen, which they said the power was off anyways, but even if they're in this pod and they're okay, how are they going to get them out of the pod with no suit that deep underwater? And,
look,
like,
don't ask too many questions.
They're not.
Because their suits
So
had
the
some
whole thing was
magic...
stupid.
Their suits had some magical technology, like these big red cylinders that somehow, I think they called them their recyclers, like they recycled the oxygen in the suit somehow. Don't ask me, I don't know how it works. Like, whatever it is, that technology is impressive because it allows them to breathe in those suits for a very long time.
Oxygen scrubbers.
Scrubbers, that's what it was. The scrubbers. That's what they called it. Even though they're not really scrubbing oxygen, are they? They'd be scrubbing like carbon dioxide that you breathe out. And then they would still have to have oxygen within them to release so that you could breathe it. It's not like
you want to talk about
oxygen.
their nail guns too? Talking about their fancy equipment?
I don't remember the nail gun. Remind me.
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly what it was, but, you know, the tools they grab right before they get on the elevator.
Go ahead.
They grab some sort of non-distinct tool that resembles a nail gun. They grab two of them before getting on the elevator to go down, and they take one or both with them when they go out to the abandoned pod or malfunctioning pod.
So they were expecting.
They don't expand upon that at all. It's just some sort of nondescript tool that resembles a nail gun. So I'm going to call it a nail gun. That works very deep underwater, which doesn't make sense. But
it's apparently a tool that they need on hand when you're going water walking, I guess.
Yes. No, not what they did that for safety because they wanted to have a weapon with them.
But they have no reason to believe they need a weapon at this point, right?
I know. I'm pretty sure the guy with the rabbit is like freaked out at this point because he thought he heard something or something.
Yeah, but still, they're supposed to be scientists and critical thinkers. And up to this point, like, we've built this whole facility. I'm assuming, like, most of the territory has been explored and whatnot. We don't think that
guy is not supposed to be very smart. Kristen Stewart even makes a joke like, we all know you don't know how to read. Haha.
Yeah, like, so what was his job then? Like, the movie describes them as a group of scientists. Was he a scientist?
I don't know.
It doesn't really say. I mean, T.J. Miller was, along with Jessica Henwick, I mean, a bright spot in this movie. Like, he did his part. They wanted quirky, funny goofy guy, and they got it. I mean, he does that really well. So yeah, it's at this point, like after they find the dead body of whoever was in that pod, they encounter their first monster, and it looks like a penis tentacle baby. Like just a blobby penis tentacle. Just slimy and odd. And it does the classic thing where they're inspecting the corpse body, and it goes, and like flares to life briefly, and they're like, oh, it's just reflex. What did you think of that little penis monster?
I mean, it was weird and creepy looking.
You have no like scientific fascination towards it?
Nah. I mean, that was a small portion of the movie, that particular one. And I spent less time thinking about that one than I did the future other things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so they eventually get to a point where something else, like they know there's monsters, and there's something outside of their elevator. It's banging and making bad noises. There's a jump scare where it like attacks the window, and this creature is doing so much damage that they have to bail. They just have to jump for it. And this is strange to me. Like they jumped out of that elevator. Like, is there any frame of reference for how far they fell before they hit the bottom?
I think they had like 200 more meters to go or something along that line. Like they showed a flash of it or something.
That's a long way to fall, even underwater.
Yep.
But they land it, and then they have to contend with all the debris of the facility coming down around them. I don't know if anyone here listening to this has ever tried to run at the bottom of a pool. I don't see them. It's a miracle that they've made it this far at this point. But we see a brief flash of an adult monster over the course of the door where they seek shelter. I guess this is like a transit area where they transport materials to and from the facility to the dig site. Is that what it came off to? Was that what it came off to like you?
Yes. It reminded me like of like a little mining like cart kind of.
Yeah, it looked very much like a coal mine. Like they use those in a coal mine, like these little carts like that to transport people down into them. You basically sit on them, and they're really low to the ground, and they take you down there.
Yeah, this was just like a high-tech version of that.
Yeah, and it seemed like only 4 people could fit on it at a time? Seems like not very many for how many people work in this facility. And also, like, why do you, again, back to your previous point, why do we need to be so far away from the dig site?
Yeah, why do we need so many different buildings that are not connected to one another and whatnot?
Yeah. Let's see. Taylor, say something real quick.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm eating sunflower seeds.
Are you really? FYI. While you're talking on the show?
Yes.
Here we go. I'm going to back up just a second to Penis Blob Monster. They ask if by boring into the hydrothermal, Jessica Henwick says, oh, there's a chance that we bored into a hydrothermal pocket with the drill, and we've released a breeding population of some underwater monster. That's her explanation for it. Which reminds me of have you seen the Meg?
No. Is that about a big shark?
It is about a big shark, and
that's all I know.
Are you familiar with the like brine lakes that exist under the ocean?
No.
Okay, well, I'll have to send you some stuff later. But those brine pools are layered. It looks like a surface of water under the water because the materials are heavier. So it's basically like a denser, heavier water under the water, forming lakes under the water. And they basically go underneath that. And when they do that, they create a hole in the hydrothermal layer, and it leaves enough of a gap so that the shark can now escape into the main waters because the hydrothermal layer was keeping it in. It's stupid. So it's a long way of saying that that's a stupid explanation for the penis blobs.
Gotcha.
TJ Miller is the only smart one for shutting the door when they get into the new facility. He's like, we're shutting this thing. Smart.
Yeah, he
Smart
was like,
move.
should I shut that door? I think I should shut that door. I'm going to shut the door.
Yeah, very smart as far as horror movie characters go. It's a shame that he dies shortly thereafter when a monster somehow gets into the facility and rips his whole body through the leg of his suit. Is that what happens?
Yes, he's getting his suit is getting pulled, the leg of his suit, and apparently it is with such great force that it literally rips the leg and his whole body out of the suit.
You would think that the materials that this suit are made out of to survive the pressures of the Mariana Trench, combined with just the force necessary to rip a human's leg off, like the creature would have to be absurdly strong, like stronger even than it feels like when they're actually encountering them later, like here in a moment, right?
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
like, it's like tugging on like the metal wire. You think it would have enough strength to literally that much like strength would literally just drag everybody else into the water. Like, there's no way they would be able to hold on. Like, they all should have died right there at that point. But everybody else escapes.
You would think the breaking point would be the very thin wire and not his suit.
Right. Or his leg.
Yeah.
But Taylor, you know, they get on the other end of this and they got to walk like the rest of the way to the next facility. And real quick, I got to do this joke. I would walk 500 miles underwater and I would walk 500 more. And then you're attacked by a monster, which does some crazy shit and drags like the captain and Kristen Stewart to some weird floating light platform in the middle of the ocean. Taylor, why do they need that light? Why do they need that floating light there?
To better illuminate the scene, obviously.
But illuminate the scene, but what is it illuminating? Like on the ocean floor? Are people making this walk regularly? They must be.
I don't think so.
They must be because they have suits capable of doing it.
It's just for repairs.
I guess. I don't know. But we finally get to see the monster. It is very much like a frogfish man. Like a Black Lagoon type creature.
Yeah, I hate them.
I did like the reflectiveness of their eyes and light so that you can kind of see them in the dark. Like when they first encounter it and like Kristen Stewart somehow hears there's no way they should have any sort of hearing other than their comm system. They should not be able to hear the environment around them. They're under fucking water. Unless there's a whale blasting woo sounds into them. But they hear something scurrying around and she's flashing her light around the darkness and it just kind of stays low to the ground and just barely stays out of the light, but you see the eyes. Like, that was scary. That was cool. I
just hate that it's humanoid in shape.
Yeah,
like,
and then
that doesn't make sense. It's
on
not that's not made. Humans are not made to be in the water.
Right.
So I don't understand why this underwater creature is humanoid in shape, but whatever.
I'll have an explanation for you later.
Okay.
If you want it.
Okay.
So, like, that was another cool scene is when, like, they're encountering it for the first time. Well, not exactly the first time, but on that light platform, and you just see, like, the top of its head as it, like, moves around the edge of this light platform. That was cool. That was a cool monster movie scene. So Captain explodes and dies, and Kristen Stewart goes barreling through the dark waters of the deep sea, but somehow is not dead. And she finds herself...
knows exactly where she is.
Yeah, she's not disoriented at all, which seems questionable at best. Like, she should be totally lost.
She happened to fall right in the right place where she was, like, right next to one of those markers, and she was like, oh, I know exactly where I am.
Do you mean
Even
that they?
though I've just fallen so far, randomly in the ocean, I just conveniently landed here.
Do you mean they had safety protocols in place in the event that a disaster like this happened, where you would be able to identify where your position is and where other things are in relation to you based on those markers and stuff like that? What? Madness. Have you ever been pulled down by a rapid, like in a river or anything?
Nah.
I have, and you might as well just accept your death because you are powerless in scenes like in like moments like this. There's no way she knew where she was. Like, there's just no way. It's so disorienting, and you're completely helpless. But
And I mean, it seemed like she had passed out for a while or something. Like, it seemed like she had been laying there for a good little minute before she came back to.
I'm glad you brought that up because so she's passed out for a while. Wait, undetermined amount of time. We don't know how long it's been. She gets to this facility, the Poseidon class facility. I don't know, or no, that's the drill. The drill's the Poseidon class. Shepherd Station. Which earlier in the movie,
which is a defunct thing that the captain said didn't exist.
Right. He said it's totally gone. He said it doesn't exist anymore, but it's there. It's fully powered. It's safe. There's nobody there. And Kristen Stewart goes in. Naturally, I mean, I would, like, if I saw a building like that, like a place of refuge, like even for a moment, I'd probably head there too. She takes off her Gears of War armor. And what's the first thing you would do, Taylor, in this instance? You're Kristen Stewart. Like, all this shit's just happened to you. Your friends are dying or missing. Like, you wake up, you find this facility, you go in. What's the first thing that's on your mind after you've been
taking
trapped?
A shower, obviously.
Yeah, you're trapped under the water. First thing you want to do, I need a fucking shower. So she cries in the shower. Strange scene.
As one does.
She pokes around. She somehow finds the captain's old locker, which, by the way, this is a defunct facility.
Doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
They just left all their shit there.
Yeah, and there's tons of equipment inside of it too. And keep in mind, like, early morning, they ask him, like, "Oh, do you have kids?" He's like, "Oh, she's 14, blah, blah, blah." And, of course, she finds his locker and the picture, and it's like the obituary card of his daughter who died at the age of 14. And I'm like, these seems like he brought these items all the way from the surface. These items mean a lot to him, and he left them in a defunct facility in a locker. Or he just said that it was defunct because he didn't want to go there because he knew those items were there. But it doesn't track. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's weird.
He didn't want to go near the photo that was there, or what? What was his reasoning for telling them that place isn't there anymore? Because he was sad about his daughter? I don't know. Somehow this emboldens Kristen Stewart, and she, I don't know, doesn't she like build something really fast, like on the table?
So it seemed that part of her suit was messed up. So she found an older suit from, I guess, several models ago, because this is a facility that hasn't been used in a while. And the suit, she found a suit part, but it's an old type. So
and they didn't reclaim anything on there.
Makes it work together, puts the new part on her, or the old part on the new suit.
Okay.
And yeah, so she basically like stitches together a working suit from the old one and the new one.
So to summarize real quick, she was possibly unconscious for a time. We don't know, but it was at least a little bit of time, we have to assume.
Yep.
Then she went she found the facility, walked to it, went in there,
took a shower,
milled about for a while.
Stuff.
Yeah, milled about, looked through people's stuff, got an idea, rebuilt that stuff in her suit, put it all back on, and head out. And what's the next thing she did?
I don't remember.
She found the other two surviving people. Like almost immediately. Like, she's just out about and under the water, and in the distance, like, what is it, like 100 yards or something? Like, there's Jessica Henwick dragging her unconscious boyfriend, who at this point has been unconscious for fucking ever.
And And let's not mention that she's been freaking out the whole movie up to this point, but somehow being in the
Justifiably
dark,
so.
alone, in the dark, alone, people have just been dragged off by this alien creature, and her boyfriend is unconscious, but now she's chill. Now she's like, the logical thing to do is continue on my way and drag this boyfriend with me.
Well, I mean, she
not
didn't
freak
have
out like I've been doing the whole movie.
she didn't have much else left to do. Like I get that one. Like the only other option would be for her to be rocking back and forth with a mental break, and that really doesn't move the movie forward very much. But regardless,
I don't know. I feel like she should have been waiting for the captain and Kristen Stewart to come back for at least a little while.
I think logically you need to assume that they're dead and you got to go before you get got. But miraculously, somehow, after all this time's elapsed, she's still dragging the boyfriend, and Kristen Stewart's able to catch up to her really quick. So they're all three together again, and they're finally to the what is it? The Titan class bore site is what it is. This is where the drill is, and it looks like a series of interconnected rings and catwalks with a big drill in the middle and like a ring type halo facility surrounding it is what it seems like. Might I also add, it didn't, like, maybe I missed it, but it didn't seem like there was anything running up from the drill or from any of the sides. So it was just drilling and not doing anything with the waste materials or whatever it was trying to drill for. Did you see like a product elevator or a belt line or anything to transfer material? I didn't see it.
I mean, I was looking at other stuff, but no, not that I saw.
Also, this thing's going to take fuel. Like, what is it using for fuel? Where is the fuel coming from? There would have to be a line dedicated and attached to it. Like a pipeline for fuel alone.
Well, I mean, that's what they were following that whole time, was some sort of pipeline. That's what they kept calling it.
Okay. All right. I rescind my criticism. But they get there, and sure enough, all around them, horror scene, there's hundreds of the alien monster men, and they're all, like, sleeping from the ceiling, like, almost
bats.
like they're, yeah, like bats, thank you, like, and their arms are just hanging down, and they have to navigate the hands without trying to touch any of them, without waking up any of the monsters. One would think.
And of course, at this moment is exactly when everyone's oxygen starts to get very low, because, of course, it did not get low at any point prior to this. It is exactly when they almost reach the destination.
Of course. And also, I might add, like, they were trying their best to avoid the hands. Like, they could have just got on their, like, hands and knees and just baby crawled.
Yes, I also thought about that. I was like, why didn't they just do that? But
yeah, just baby crawl. Baby crawl. Like, it'll take you longer than if you walked through it, but there's no chance that those hands are going to touch you. They did not go down that far. Like, they went down to, like, around the top of the helmets. So.
Yep.
Yeah, and of course, like, the alarm system is loud enough that the monsters hear it. One of them wakes up and tries to swallow Kristen Stewart, and it does. And what does she do to get out of that? I don't remember. Maybe she shoot a flare or something?
Yeah, she shoots a flare through it and kills it.
Yeah, and she busts out of it. Cool moment. Then the rest of them wake up, and before they're all able to attack, surprise, the ceiling lifts away to be revealed that it's a giant tentacle of a much larger creature. And it's Cthulhu. It is straight up Lovecraftian Cthulhu in all his glory. Finally gracing the big screen. I told you I'd explain the humanoid monsters a little bit. So that's what you would call, like, the Innsmouth folk or whatever. Like, Cthulhu's followers would start exhibiting fish-like qualities, eventually disappearing into said water and transforming entirely into basically fish people. That's how, like, typically H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror lore goes. There's also, like, a species of, like, straight up fish people, like evil fish people. Like, that's what they are. Like, they can, and they're more amphibian than anything else, so they can go on land and water. Um, the drill has drilled so deep that it's awakened and released the dread god Cthulhu, the old one, the killer of worlds, the chaos of the stars, the elder god of olden times. To see him is to instantly go mad. And yeah, they get into the facility. Boyfriend's at least conscious enough to kind of walk, but not on his own. You know what I mean? At this point. And here's another thing. They don't know it's Cthulhu. You as the audience member probably don't even know. Like, I knew because I'm familiar with...
I don't know.
See, I'm very familiar with Lovecraftian horror. So as soon as I saw it, I said, that's fucking Cthulhu. Like, there's nothing else that could be. That is Cthulhu. And later on, I would Google it, and sure enough, it's Cthulhu. Like, because I wanted to make sure, is this Cthulhu inspired, or were the filmmakers intending for this to be the Cthulhu? And they definitely intended for it to be the Cthulhu, which I thought was fucking awesome. But there's no way that Kristen Stewart or the others know that this is anything more than just a big monster, right? Or just a big animal, really. There's no reason for them to think otherwise. So why would one of them have to stay behind and make sure the animal that's a part of nature gets destroyed? Because as far as they know...
Well, she didn't. She didn't.
Yes, she did. As far as
she stayed behind because there were no more pods for her to take.
Oh, and we'll get to that. I just wanted to point out, like, there's no reason to think that these things would chase you to the surface or even are a threat to the surface in the first place. You know what I mean?
But that's, like, that wasn't the why behind why it happened.
First off, there's only 3 escape pods, which makes no sense.
There's only 2.
No, there was 3, but one was broken. One was
2.
Right. So Kristen Stewart decides to stay behind and send the other 2 off.
Birds go, yeah.
Right.
And then she says, "Oh shit! All the medium-sized humanoid monsters are going after their pods. The only way I can stop them. Oh look, there's a very easy self-destruct button that doesn't require an access code.
Yeah.
I should hit that."
That part did not need an access code, but we can totally set off a nuclear disaster underneath the ocean, irreparably damaging the ecosystem forever.
She just like turn the heat all the way up or some shit.
Yeah.
Because it works like that. Thermostat, heat up. Okay.
So here's my criticism of the pods thing. Like, send the unconscious boyfriend up, sure. Kristen Stewart and Jessica Henwick are very small humans. They're tiny.
Could have fit in the one pod. That's what I thought too.
They're tiny women. Like, they are just so tiny. That's not like
they didn't want to sit on each other's laps while they were in underwear.
Yeah, maybe so. But Jessica Henwick is 5'6". This is rude of me. I don't know how much she weighs, but she's a tiny human. There's no way she weighs over what, like 130 pounds, maybe. I don't know how
probably
much.
Less than that.
Probably less than that. Yeah. And then Kristen Stewart is. Let's see how tall she is. She's 5'5", so she's even shorter than her, and just as skinny, if not more so. So I would assume it's built, for some reason, an escape pod built for only one person at a time sounds really like bad economics. If you're going to spend the money to make escape pods, you're going to want it to hold as multiple people as possible, right? Maximize.
But I mean, also, if you're just having a medical emergency and you need to get up to the surface fast, then you don't want to have to like waste your whole pod just to send one person up.
So multiple pods of different sizes, like you would still want a pod that will fit a team in it, right?
Yes.
You would still think.
I would agree.
You would still think like the one type of pod that you're talking about would contain 2 people, because the person you don't want to put a injured person in one pod by themselves unattended. you would think the second person that's helping them, the medic or whoever, would be riding with them to the surface.
Also, the bigger the pod, the more challenges you'd have, like because of the pressure and whatnot, physics-wise. The smaller, the better.
So we're to understand that this movie has the technology to be at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, but they still can't.
Not to have a medium size.
Yeah, like they can't double the size of a fucking escape pod. Come on. Even if those things are the case, I can't imagine like the weight restrictions on that thing are gonna matter much. Like, what's the problem of having an extra 100 pounds in there if they sat on each other's laps and went up?
It doesn't matter.
A slower descent, or a slower ascent maybe, but whatever the materials used,
not significantly so at all.
Right, like
it should just shoot up like a cork, like that you drag underwater, you know.
Exactly, and whatever materials they're using to ascend are going to be strong enough that 100 pounds isn't going to keep them underwater. Right, like I don't know. It seems like a lot of oversight in the world building to me, because I don't know. That one thing, like we've criticized this movie a lot, but that's the one thing that drove me nuts. Like there's no reason to think that she had to die, because obviously she didn't know the monsters were going to go after the life pods in the first place. Just climb in with Jessica Henwick and go up to the surface and survive.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Would that have been a more compelling ending into that movie, is if they did climb into a pod? Well, no, and then shot up to the surface, and they got to the surface, and they're like, "Yay, we did it!" And then all of a sudden,
they got dragged back down.
Exactly, the monster's hands start coming around the sides of all the pods and start dragging them back down to the surface. And then the newspaper articles that are flashing at the end are like, "Entire crew goes missing, no survivors."
There's a cover-up. Woo!
I think that would be. I would think that would be a way better ending with no survivors at all, but. Jessica Henwick survived, and so did her useless boyfriend.
It did say that there were only 2 survivors.
And a bunny.
But what happened to all the other pods that got sent up with people? Like,
they didn't make it. I guess you have to assume the monsters got them, I guess.
Because, like, that's why there were no pods for them in any of the other places, because they were damaged or because they had already been used. The captain said at the beginning he had already sent like 24 people up, so it's just like
they must have not made it.
How did only the 2 at the end make it, as opposed to the people at the beginning? You know, I don't know.
I guess the monsters must
weird. Seems
the
weird.
The monsters must have got him, and the nuke must have let those 2 escape. Is the only thing I can think of. But here's the thing at the end with the newspaper clippings going by real fast. That is strange to me. It was like nuclear powered, yes?
Probably.
I think so. Like that's what she overloaded, was it not? Like at the drill site?
I don't know.
Made the explosion? I don't remember.
It was fake, so I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a core meltdown. So that sounds like it would be a nuke. But anyway, the corporation like denied all help from the government and refused to turn over security tape footage, and we're like, oh, it was just a huge accident, and they cover it up, and they like, we're gonna go through with rebuilding the drill. I find that like a hard pill to swallow too. Like I feel
did you miss the one that said that they were back drilling again 8 months later?
Yeah, they rebuilt that place really fast, first of all.
That's impossibly fast. And also, what happened to fucking Cthulhu?
Also, the litigation of it. Like, you had 314 people died?
You'd be bankrupt. Just, like...
Yeah, the bad press alone. I mean, Exxon Valdez shut down Exxon for a while. Like, they shut down entire... drilling operations just to save face, like, and that's without a loss of human life. Like, this is 314 people. Like, it would be an outrage, and then to be right back drilling with no improvements, like you would have to keep drilling down there. You would have to show this is where we failed. This is how it's better. This is how it'll never happen again. And it wouldn't work. Like a company like that just would not survive in the public eye like that. Like, but maybe they don't care.
That whole part was not believable at all.
Maybe the corporation works for Cthulhu.
Maybe. There's really the whole drilling operation was just a pleasant way to feed Cthulhu.
Maybe the survivor, like the people in the pods, became the monsters because they clearly planted their baby penis blob monsters in their backs. So maybe that's where they all came from. Maybe those were maybe that's like a twist of the movie that they could have added in that would have made it go, oh shit, like all the survivors are the monsters. Like that would be cool. Or like, and the corporation conspiracy, because in Lovecraftian horror, Cthulhu does command cults across the globe to do his dark bidding and release him from his watery prison. So like that could be the motivations for drilling in the first place. Like under the cover of profit, like we're going to release our dark god Cthulhu to destroy the planet and we'll serve him. Like that could have been, the filmmakers said that they hope to make a sequel to further expand on the Cthulhu mythos. So I actually do hope they get to make more, because they surely can't make another movie underwater. Is it going to be underwater too? More underwater?
I mean,
or are they going to
have to be?
Why don't they call it Above the Water, Underwater 2? Underwater 2.
I don't like it.
How about Beneath the Surface? Shout out to Mike Abbey in the Beneath the Surface podcast. Oh, it kind of reminds me of like corporations, like mining corporations in West Virginia, which, spoiler, that's where I live. Like they did similar things for coal, like really awful working environments. They shaved a few they shaved money off of safety just to save a buck, you know. It's bad, man. It's still not great either in that industry. Really not. So there were some parallels there. The difference is, like, there's no Cthulhu in West Virginia that I'm aware of. Although 2020 can't, I don't want to say can't get any crazier, but I mean, like, if Cthulhu popped out of the earth at this point, don't think I would be surprised. Taylor, you're in Cthulhu Central up there in New England. Like, that's typically where these... Yeah, that's like where a lot of H.P. Lovecraft's short stories take place, is in and around the New England area.
Oh,
so
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Keep an eyeball out for fish people.
I'm sure the submarines will take care of it. It's cool.
Yeah. Taylor, real quick. Quiz me on water-related things. Ask me anything. Let's see if I know it. Test my IQ.
Is water wet?
Water. Is water wet? Wet. What is wet? To whom? Pass. Go to the next one.
I don't know.
Correct. I'll get that one every single time because I also don't know. Taylor, I think we're going to call it here. We talked a lot about this movie. Like, we probably talked more about this movie than any other movie we've ever talked about. Like, we really broke this one down.
Well, I mean, it was, like, bad in so many different places.
Ouch. Again,
I didn't even mention some of the bad things. Like, the helmet glass. Like, did you see how thin that was? Like, there's no way in heck that would survive the pressures down there.
No way in heck. You're sure?
Like, I don't know. In space, they're dealing with, like, 15 PSI that they're dealing with. And, like, down there, it's, like, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 PSI. Like, that's wild. Like, yeah, no. Like it looked like a space helmet, and like those are completely different temperatures or pressures, not temperatures.
You
They're
said
probably completely different temperatures too, but you know.
you said 4 or 5,000 psi.
Uh-huh.
It's actually 16,000 psi at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Either way, it's a lot more than 15
It's 7
or
miles.
14.
7 miles down. That's really far.
Just saying. Their helmets comparable to space, but the pressure not comparable to space.
James Cameron went there, so maybe that's who they should have got to make this movie. No offense. I mean, again, it's a bad movie, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. I had a nice time. I wasn't expecting, I wasn't expecting like to be blown away or whatever. I thought it was good enough. Like TJ Miller was funny.
Kristen Stewart's jacket.
Kristen Stewart, I thought for her role, she's fine. Like it wasn't unbelievable or whatever. I find the circumstances surrounding them and like the details of the world building and stuff like that are a lot of what we picked on. But like I find it hard to believe that the only 6 survivors at the outset of the movie are all scientists. Like there's so many other types of people there. Like they could have easily made TJ Miller like one of the janitors. I would have totally bought TJ Miller as a janitor more than I would a scientist, because that's basically what I am. I'm a smart ass, and I'm not a scientist at my job. I'm just a Joe Blow nobody. But Jessica Henwick can be whatever she wants to be. Yeah. We got to go. Taylor, do you want to say anything before we sign off?
No.
Oh. Well, thank you, dear listener, very much for listening. We appreciate it. Hopefully you're still with us. Don't forget to do the thing that I always say that no one ever does. Rate and review the podcast. Really helps the show. Oh, we did it. Check out our other show, Pokemon After Darkrai. It is a no-holds-barred, no-nothing podcast where we talk about Pokemon and hurt the ones we love. Folks, we'll see you again soon on this here program. This program?
We won't actually see you because there's no cameras, but...
Uh-huh. Wow. I hope that the filmmakers of this movie do a movie based around a bad podcast, because I guarantee you, if someone listened to this podcast, they could pick out all the bad things about it that would make us seem pretty foolish. Too meta?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Join us next week. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Pizza Power, Turtles on the Half Shell, Turtle Power, whatever. That's what we're doing. Taylor.
You're not going to get the scoop on turtle soup?
Look, I am just drowning in bad puns over here, okay? Get it? Because it's underwater?
Uh-huh.
I am boiling mad that you made that bad pun. I am wet with anticipation for the end of this show. I legit, I don't have any more. All right, Taylor. You know what?
Okay.
If we're gonna die,
let's die underwater.
hey, that's my new favorite. Bye, everybody.
Bye.